Matum, February 2025, part 2. So let's immediately start with virtual film emulsion and a contact sheet. So that's with the Vika app, in Saturator, DNAZ, KDMite CCD as a filmulator. You have the QR code for the variator values and importing this specific virtual emulsion. I thought it was an interesting emulsion because here are the 4 first pictures taken vertically. Very contrasty. You have some kind of weird level. Once it goes too dark, you have I don't know how you named that, but it's going to be really clear cut, the differences in intensities, but it gives a definite character. And you have the magenta and the digital noise from the CCD, but at the same time, those color zones, as you can see in the reflection with some oranges, some yellows. I thought it was really interesting, and even more interesting in low lights because the grain really comes out. Same with the candles. Picture middle, right, and right. That's actually the same small stick on the ground. I just wanted to show you the difference when you have no lights. That's a picture middle right, and when you have flash. Where suddenly this virtual film emulsion gives more definition, but still keeps a really strong digital grain and those characteristics in the color transformation. Here again, it's a good, I think, expression of how this virtual film stock reacts. You really have a strong noise addition from the CCD simulation. Old CCD with the magentas, the reds, the grain. But also you will have those zones here. They're not orange and yellow, but more like blue, dark blue, and light blue in the sky, as you can see behind. And it does for some really interesting, I think, shots, very characteristic of this combination of Daaz and KDMite CCD. Here 2 pictures with more light. Basically, in the well-lit parts of the image, you will have less grain. It's still present, very crisp, but you will have this noise coming out in the lower light parts of the image, or with this wall detail in the middle. You see the grain, but yeah, I think it's a really characteristic emulsion, which I found interesting. Let's go to Kamar and its random mode. Here, that's a picture coming out of the sensor directly with no recropping and no transformation. So lots of snow and hail in the far distance on a very cold day in West Reykjavik. That's just next to the domestic airport, which is on the left. One of the landing zones is on the left. And here, 3 treatments thanks to the experimental editor. On Kamar, the first one on the left, it's a typical vertical sectors by Kow FJX Mini as a filmulator. In the middle, that's Gull Ball that tends to make everything dark and diminishes the contrast and brings some yellow, weird coloring with KD APS null 200 as a filmulator. And the typical semi-saturator on the right with this sort of double imaging, weird rendering, and KDC 100N as a filmulator. And I thought very different renderings, very different character, but yeah, I like the 3 of them. Here 2 more. On the left, that's Dolce. You have this really soft contrast from this old saturator that came from my dual photo app from years ago, and QQ Berg as a filmulator. And the picture in the middle, it crashed, so I don't have the QR code because my apps do crash. They even crash with myself, and I'm trying to resolve the crash causes, but usually it's memory, and I don't really optimize that. I will repeat, I do those apps, I create those apps for your usage, but mainly for my own practice. So as long as they work, I'm pretty good and I'm pretty happy. Let's say it like this. And I try to correct them if it becomes too disturbing, but I try to keep it practical. I work alone on those apps. And on the right, that's a Icelandic pepper. It's actually a Moruga scorpion. Very, very, check it out online. It's a very, very strong pepper. And they grow them in greenhouses here. So will I say it's good? I tasted it. It's really, really strong. So I took a picture. And I thought it was interesting because this virtual stock is arguable, which really kind of desyncs the red, green, and blue channels of the colors. And KDV3X, which is an expired Vision 3 film simulation. So you have the best of both worlds in terms of diminishing the quality of your image. And here are the 5 codes because I lost one, if you want to use them. 2 more pictures of that really strong pepper. I'm actually preparing a bottle of the local alcohol, which is Brennivin in Iceland, with this specific pepper. So I'll probably take pictures of people drinking it and the weird faces they will make. And the picture here on the left, that's Kane Swo with the columns, and FJ HAPS 400 as a filmator, and Regertz was this very specific pattern with KD Mite CCD as a filmator. And I thought it was interesting also with this bag, this red bag, kind of looked like a pepper itself on a snowy tennis court, and the use of one of those filmators, which is very typical, the RD Papyre, and here with RDR as an insaturator that makes those weird contrast treatments. And yeah, far right, that's Rondi, one of those insaturators that kind of distorts, makes it kind of spherical in the middle. We slightly see it here. And QQ Berg as a filmulator, kind of like the very analog aspect. QQ Berg always adds this very soft grain, which I like. And here are the 6 QR codes, the 6 last pictures. Let's continue. Still with Kamar. That was during a performance in one of the museums central of Reykjavik, near the huge church in the middle, which is Hallgrímskirkja. And this was a performance by some local artists, local and international artists, where food was involved and conceptual art. Really nice evening. And I took this picture with Crunchy as an insaturator with those weird color zones, and KD 100 as a filmator. I think sometimes those really strong filters make sense in those kind of situations. It was a very cool evening, by the way, but you can also, using the experimental editor, have something more classic, like here with Weback as an insaturator and FJN02 as a filmator. A really interesting museum, by the way, a place, and very interesting and great performance, culinary performance that evening. Here's 3 pictures taken from the west neighborhoods of Reykjavik. I thought it was interesting, this full moon, very low near the road lights, sort of part of the lighting situation. The picture on the left, that's RDR and KD APS 200 as a filmulator. In the middle, that's Crunchy and FJN02. And on the right, that's Haben and Polaroil, PLLRL. 3 interpretations of the same scene, basically. Here, that's a performance. That's actually the preparation for a performance in one of the art universities in Reykjavik. And I thought this image was kind of interesting because very dark, very contrasty. I kind of like the composition. It's kind of mysterious. You have those performers that are preparing and rehearsing on the scene on the right. It takes some time to decode the image. You realize the picture is kind of taken from outside. It's on an upper level, plunging on the room where the public is going to be. And you have the control room with the guy in charge of the lights and the sound on the left. You have to decipher the image, and that's part of the interest, I believe, in making pictures like that, letting the viewer take time to try to understand, like a game, like a mystery game. And here are the 6 last QR codes. Let's continue. Again, one of those pictures I put once in a while. That's me concentrating, trying to decode and debug my apps. I kind of like this black and white grain, and the way it's black and white. It's got a very subtle amount of color, but I thought it was a good setting, and the QR code is coming up later. And of course, that's come up and KDT32 as a filmator. The picture in the middle I thought was interesting. You might not realize, but it's a cat. And I like that cat looking at that building. There's nothing really interesting. So I took a picture of what he was looking at and him standing there looking at the building. I don't know why. And that's with, you see those zones, that's Bomber Baba, those color zones that kind of are weird. And Ardybug called 200 as a filmulator to kind of bring some analog patina on the whole thing. And the last picture on the right, I kind of like this sign. That's where the internet is. If you've wondered where it is, I found the place, and it's in this building in the first floor. And yeah, never really knew why that thing was there. Is it to be sure for people to know where internet is? I don't know. And I kind of like the treatment, actually. That I like the overall composition and the treatment that's was come up in KDV3X. Yeah, whatever. It's still kind of a mystery. I always see this sign, but that's my favorite picture of it. If I know once what it is, I'll tell you. Here are two pictures through the experimental editor of Kamar. The one on the left, I lost the QR code because my app crashed. The one in the middle, that's Nezeska KDV3X. Nezeska as an saturator and KDV3X as a filmulator. Kind of like this low night light situation. On the left, that's obviously Booty, the Booty saturator, but I don't really know which filmulator I used. It's, I can post it in the comments if necessary. And on the right, I just thought was interesting to see this sign in Icelandic. That's when you're coming from Kow FJX, going towards Reykjavik, the signs. And this grass, this brown grass that resists to everything in those seasons. Here are the QR codes, the 5, sadly, because I'm missing one. And to finish, I'm going to go for a last scene. Sometimes on the west side, the west coast of the city of Reykjavik, you have those incredible west and south looking. You have those incredible skies, and this was one of them. And this treatment, this first treatment, that's Morkmal in QQC 1600. Really liked. I think that's my favorite of the ones you're going to see. It was the reflections on the water, those light wells coming down through the clouds. You don't see directly the sun. Here is the same version through the experimental editor of Kamar with this black and white coming from Bewi, and then the FJX Mini to treat it on the filmulator level. Or the next one that's square with those slight square super impressions, and KD Addends 100s to create the analog patina. Or here, that's not exactly the same picture, it's same place, same time. That's with Safrano and QQ Blued 140, and you have this sort of inversed, this typical for that filmulator, the inversed white zones, and it's kind of, I don't know, it makes it more dark and the contrast is different, very analog. The vignetting is, this reverse vignetting is, I think, very interesting in some situations. Or here, that was Isla as an insaturator. I did it specifically for Iceland. It's kind of soft, very warm, and works pretty well here. You lose some of the contrast on the water, but I thought it was really potent in revealing some parts of this coastline where you kind of see the details. Or here you completely lose them. That's with Bewi and with Filmnature, which is KD APS 0200. And here you really have an outline, a very well-defined black outline of the coast and the sky. Everything's very more contrasty and strong. And yeah, beautiful sceneries. And hopefully that was entertaining. That's the last picture for this month's Matum. Don't hesitate for questions, suggestions, comments. And yeah, catch you next time.